things that could stimulate HCl production or kind of regulate it, like your stomach tonic?
The stomach tonic would be so what I normally use in the clinic is Fair For You from Chinese and ST, or the stomach tonic. Those two together will take care of it most of the time.
Okay.
And then sometimes I start putting the digestive enzymes in after. That would be my typical protocol. If I do need an antibiotic to be able to knock down the H. pylori, again, I'm going to use some of the berberini hydrochloride or the berberini alkaloid group. Barberry, Oregon grape, hydrastis. As you might remember, hydrastis, a golden seal, is the king of the mucous membranes. So it's very, very good. So if I'm going to be using even cayenne for an ulcer situation, it'd be more beneficial for me to put it with golden seal than have it by itself.
Okay.
But the stomach tonic actually works typically better because, again, it's a regulator, and regulation is probably more significant than increasing or decreasing. Because even though I would have to say 70–80% of my patients have low digestive enzymes, that's kind of a snapshot situation. I'll have an awful lot of patients that will have high digestive enzymes in certain times of the day and really low in other times of the day. And it really comes down to, well, you've been in a stressful situation, you have butterflies in your stomach type deal. It really comes to do with how they relate to their environment, what kind of acid production they're producing sometimes. Any other questions? Yes?
What is good to give people with lots of allergies, dogs, cats?
If you have a person that has lots of allergies, dogs, cats, etc., one of the things that will help a lot is reishi. It doesn't get rid of the allergy, but let's say it takes 100 points of exposure to have an allergic reaction. It'll change the goalpost to about 200. Another herb, which we're actually going to talk about today, is nettles. Especially freeze-dried nettles is also very good. But I want to be real specific. A large number of allergies are psychologically derived. And so we found that usually flower essences, counseling, and there's several kinds of EMT or various other energetic therapies that have been able to erase large amounts of allergies in people. So we've actually almost had more success with some of the energetic phenomena than anything else. So it literally comes down to various issues. I'm not saying they're just in their head and they don't count. Of course those allergies count. But it comes down to these other corollary therapies really have to do with, the easiest way for me to say is some congestion in their astral/emotional body that we have to figure out a way to resolve. And these are real things. Just like, so it's not just all in your head, it's actually in your astral body, in your head, or something like that. Any other questions? Yes?
Quickly, if somebody has something like colitis and they've gone through surgeries for it, and now they're looking at building back.
So they've gone through, so they've had colorectal surgery, they've had some of their,
I believe so, yeah.
a colonectomy or some of the colon taken out and stuff like that. It would be the same old protocol. We just start building them up. We'd still use, it depends if they're constipated or diarrhea in that situation. Lots of times they have a J pouch. Sometimes it's being reconnected. We want to, so we wouldn't put them on something as dramatic as a detox right off the bat, even though detoxes are great for these people, but we usually wait 3 to 12 months before we do that, just to make sure there's no inflammation in the healing area. We use the same ordinary therapies. Sometimes we put a little bit more roughage in, but the most important thing during that stage is, of course, diet.
Right.
We want to make sure they have a diet that didn't get them into the situation in the first place. Also, ecological balance becomes very important for their tone.
Right.
Funny as it may seem, though, it depends on how much is being released. Some of the cathartics in small doses are tonic to the intestinal tract. So something like Cascara sagrada, one of the first herbs we talked about in this thing, low dose of this will slowly build up the tone of the intestinal tract, the large intestine. But let's be realistic. If they've had large amounts of it taken out in the ileocecal valve, which is quite common, then it's not going to help that area because it's not there. So energetically, though, you still have to fix that meridian. So from a Chinese Oriental acupuncture point of view, you can take out the colon, but you can't take out the large intestine meridian. So there still is the energetic issues that come from that. One of the most eclectic minds of the last century was Wilhelm Reich. He was an apprentice student of Freud, but in his own right created an awful lot of things. He was famous for quoting that the intestinal tract, especially the large intestinal tract, is the emotional brain. It's not quite that, of course, but we can really see that a lot of emotional tension, emotional phenomena is held in that area. So lots of times, colitis, Crohn's, etc., is directly related to emotional issues. Very, very common problem. Of course, when you go to a gastroenterologist or a surgeon, their solution is always surgery. You go to a herbalist, his solution is herbals. Just like you go to a Toyota salesman, they don't try to sell you a Chrysler. But usually we can avoid the operation in 80% of the people. Of course, this situation is already water under the bridge. You don't want to say, oh, geez, too bad you didn't come in earlier. I could have saved your colon. That's useless information for them at this point in time. But what I'm saying here is, at least 80% of the patients I've seen with irritable bowel, Crohn's, colitis, I would have to say it's more a software issue than a hardware issue. So taking out the hardware doesn't help. You have to deal with the software. And if, and let's say it's colitis, an autoimmune disease, if you take out the colon, the autoimmune disease will pop up somewhere else later. If I had to give you the #1 best herbal formula we use for this, which was created for this, is the reishi extract. As you might remember, it's got reishi in, which works on this body-mind connection. It also is good for allergies and things like that, but it's also got echinacea, which helps the healing process. It's also got barberry and ginger in, which are very important for the whole digestive tract. So we would use usually 3 reishi extract twice daily coming out of the operation, and sometimes for the rest of their life, but certainly for 6 months to a year, until we actually start trying to build up the integrity there. And flower essence, especially chamomile, but the most common ones I would use would be chamomile, dill, trembling aspen, and nasturtium, and all 3 yarrows will be a common formula, even though we should pull back from saying there's actual flower essence formulas for different health issues. This issue just comes in so often into the clinic. Should I say that really a lot of North Americans have problems with their nether regions in the sense of their intestinal tract, that I almost have that formula standardly stamped in. I probably used it 2 or 3 times this week already, and it's only Wednesday for people with that kind of problem. So for me to see that kind of problem weekly is almost always the case.
Yeah.